Dear ones, I am Archangel Michael. Let's continue our lesson from yesterday. So just remembering, quickly. I told you that when creating consciences, some combination of factors caused feelings not foreseen by our Father or Mother God. Through the survival instinct, some beings had no problem killing their fellow man so that there would be more food left. It is as if the love for one's neighbor, the love for a brother, had been banished from that heart, from that consciousness. As I said, even so, our Father or Mother God thought it would be an interesting experience to let these consciousnesses evolve. It would be a process of testing, of evolution, where those consciousnesses could be observed, the way they would behave in the future. As I said here, beings populate the planets and there, the race belonging to this planet began. Then multiply this by all the stars in the universe. And over time, these consciousnesses evolved. Some evolved appropriately, taking into consideration love for others, and they didn't feel good about killing their fellow man just to eat, to have food. Others, however, as time went by, began to realize that they had power in their hands, that the simple fact of eliminating a similar person gave them a certain power. At that moment, they didn't understand it as a power, they just understood that they were capable of changing the course of that environment. So, they began to think of strategies, of ways to dominate other beings, just by threatening them with death. Then, the feeling of domination began to be created. I said, in the previous video, that each soul had its own way of being, had its conscience, or rather, has its conscience, and some were extremely capable, they liked to create, they liked to produce, and others were extremely, how shall I say, unwilling to do anything, those who want to sit all the time, just thinking about moving around to find something to eat. Remember, I'm talking about the beginning of time. Very good. Then, some souls stood out more than others, and normally those who had these feelings of slowness, of laziness, began to realize that they could have others doing things for them, based on threat. Then a feeling of dominance and power begins to emerge. No, don't think that our Father or Mother God didn't follow this closely, quite the contrary, he was increasingly more attentive, because it is as if things were taking turns that were not expected, at any time, by our Father or Mother God. But as I already said, because of his infinite love, God never admitted to simply eliminating a part of himself, because as I said, everyone has the divine spark, everyone has the love of God in their hearts. So, God imagined the following: all these souls who deviate from the path, will always have the right to one day redeem themselves and return to feeling that love, that innate feeling that was born with them, not these feelings that were changed over time. So this was a law created by God, that each soul would take its own path, make its own decisions, but from then on, there would be reactions to those decisions, and that soul would go through certain lessons to learn that that was the wrong path. So, the process of evolution begins there, with lessons. The soul made a mistake, very well, it will go through a lesson to understand that it was a mistake, and it will have every right to change. So this is the greatest law of our Father or Mother God: everything that is done always has a reaction, always has a consequence. If you do good, the consequence is a greater good; if you make a mistake, the consequence will be, what did you create from that mistake? But everyone has the right to repent and return to the path. So it was written that all consciences would be free to think and feel whatever they wanted. There would be no more limits, nor would there be forms of consciousness control, so that this would no longer happen. God did not admit that. His creation was free, it could not be mentally controlled, just because it was on the wrong path. She would have to realize her mistake and get back on track. That would be the crowning achievement of his greatest creation. Very good. So, the world developed. The universe developed, and you can imagine that these consciousnesses, those from the beginning, who only killed for the simple fact of having more food, understood that they could kill for power, for dominance, for greed, for wanting new lands, wanting to dominate new planets, and so on. Things were happening. But it's worth remembering here, as I also said, that God has control over everything. Do not forget that everyone has a divine spark linked to the Father or Mother God. So He knows exactly what is happening at every point in the universe. Many people ask this question, even today: why does God allow this? Why does God allow suffering? Everything, my brothers, are lessons. It is evolution of the soul. No, the soul does not have to suffer to evolve, it only suffers if it follows the wrong path. Ah, but if a soul is dominated by another, where did she go wrong? Realize, somehow that soul stopped being strong, she stopped believing in the strength she had, and let himself be dominated. Nobody is weak. You are all strong. So whoever lets himself be dominated is also making a mistake, because no one can be dominated. If our Father or Mother God does not dominate anyone, why would another being dominate him? Ah, but often we don't have a choice. I agree. Many times you have no choice. But how often do you fight it? How many times do you really worry about getting out of this situation, or do you accept these situations out of comfort? Each case is different, my brothers. It is not possible to generalize, there are no rules in this regard. But letting yourself be dominated is also a mistake. No one can let themselves be dominated. Nobody. I agree that often, bringing to the parallel of today's world, you don't have many choices, because your rulers decide and you simply have to comply. But then I ask a question: who put the ruler there? He didn't go in alone. You put him there. Then realize that you made a bad choice. So everything has a reaction. Every action has a reaction. So not always, as you understand, that you are the poor things, that you didn't ask to go through this, go back in time a little and realize if your little finger really wasn't involved in this whole situation. Stop and analyze. Nobody is in the wrong place. Everyone is in the right place at the right time. Then each soul is born where it asked to be born. You don't understand that. Because you have lessons to learn, and that was the best way your soul found to learn the lesson, being in that place, at that moment, submissive to that regime, to those people. This happens all over the world. But I'm not going to talk about the current world, I'm talking about the beginning of time. So realize that there is no evil entity that controls all of this. This was a way for their religions to create power between good and evil. There is no power between good and evil. Good always prevails. Why? I repeat again, everyone has the divine spark in their hearts, and God has the key, to end it all whenever He wants. But through His infinite wisdom and His immense love, He allows each being to be whatever he wants, have your free choice, and bear its consequences. Only that. But there is no such power that they impose on the so-called evil. There is no evil entity that wars with God. This doesn't exist. This is just a picture that was created. She does not exist. Ah, but there are beings with power. Is different. We who are beings of light exist too. I will explain this later. So realize that there is no evil entity with strength equal to that of God, as you are often led to believe. Does not exist. Because God has control over everything. Our Father or Mother God has control over every being in this universe, because everyone has the divine spark. No one has been able to change this, and nor will they be able to. So that doesn't exist. There is no such clash between two figures, one white and one black, good and evil, this does not exist. What exists are beings who think they have power. That, okay, to a certain extent they have power, but they are all children of God. All. Even those who have a completely dark heart due to the actions they have already committed. Yet, deep within your heart there is the divine spark, it doesn't go off. It only goes out when the soul dies. I already said this here too. So put this in your minds, there is no clash between good and evil on the same level, this does not exist. Very good. Continuing in the beginnings of the universe. These beings who realized that they could dominate others through threat, dominance, improved themselves. Remember, consciousnesses evolved, and with each new being that was born, that consciousness evolved more and more, as it is in the current world among you. Every day you learn new things and you evolve. Very good. I am not going to cite here examples of planets, examples of stars, of how beings lived. At that time, beings only worried about survival, in having something to eat, as they knew exactly that the lack of food would cause them to die, because they needed to eat to survive. And then many may be asking themselves, what was this food, which was so rare at that time? Yes, food was scarce, because the stars were not yet fully developed. I'm not talking about animals here, I'm talking about the planet itself, in the things that the planet itself produced, so that they could be used as food. So you think that a planet is assembled from one day to the next? This is yet another limiting child that has been placed in your mind. No, the planets transform over time. Over time, everything will multiply, and the surface of the planet will mold itself to that habitat. But in the beginning it was all very difficult, because everyone had to help create that star, not just planets. So my brothers, as time passed, we are talking about millions and millions of years, everything happened and the planets were finalized, let's say, in their composition. They were adapted to a reasonable life, where there would no longer be a need to kill others to eat, there was already food for everyone. Very good. But that feeling of dominance, of power, began to grow in the hearts of some. And they started to create territories. At that time, animals already existed, and they observed that animals used to delimit their territories. They found that means of survival interesting. No, the animals did not attack each other, it was a totally harmonious environment, where no one fed on their fellow man, no one fed on anything alive. Only from the fruits and the land, of the vegetables that came from the earth. So there wasn't this ferocity, this evil, even among animals. There was not. Everyone lived harmoniously. Each one in their own way, but the animals also liked to have their corners, their places, their groups, and they didn't really like them being invaded. Very well, but everything in a harmonious coexistence, without major problems. And then these beings found it interesting, this form of dominance, of having a space, of delimiting their space. And we started thinking in terms of possession, this is mine. This piece is mine, and a new feeling of power across the land began to emerge, power for what one had, and which belonged to no one, because no star belongs to anyone. Nothing belongs to anyone. Nobody has anything. You have nothing. You have to live. If you had anything, when this physical body left you would take your belongings with you, because they would belong to you. So you have nothing. Nothing belongs to you, only your experience, everything your soul has been through, the rest, nothing is yours. Your physical body dies and you take nothing with you. Then nothing is yours. Nothing ever belonged to anyone, but they understood that they could have dominions, they could have kingdoms, territories. Then many other feelings started to appear. And then we are going to talk about a series of modifications, even among animals, because they saw fit to dominate the animals as well. And of course the animals revolted, of course the animals didn't accept it. Then, a whole imbalance, of that harmony that existed, began to happen. Remember, I'm not talking about planet Earth, I'm speaking in general terms, because all stars have their animals. So before many ask, yes, animals also have the divine spark, because they are also creations of our Father or Mother God. How not? And why were animals created? The function of the animals in any astro is to maintain the balance of the planet itself, of the astro itself, because the animals move the flowers, animals eat the fruits, animals carry the seeds, the animals move the earth's soil. So there is a whole balance there. When they are placed on the star, there is a balance. Ah, but don't they multiply beyond what they should and end up becoming inconvenient? No, because due to the balance that existed, notice the following, animals that reproduce more quickly die more quickly. So there was always a balance. Nature itself is responsible for maintaining balance, do not allow excess of any animal. My brothers, this exists in balance, everything is very well planned. No animal was created for nothing, for the simple fact that it was created. He had a reason. But you don't see animals that way, and the total imbalance that exists today is simply. I'll give you an example from here on earth, it was simply caused by you, not by them. Yes, I will say that over time, animals also acquired the habit of attacking other animals, because this was also part of the evolution of their consciousness. Just as man realized this, so did animals. But leave aside the sentimental factor, that the animal kills for the sake of killing. No, he kills to survive, because he needs to eat. So this also exists, a balance. So over time, animals also learned to destroy each other. This also ended up contaminating the animals. But I repeat again, all within a balance passed down by our Father or Mother God. Very good. We are talking about feelings, we are now talking about dominance. So beings felt they had the right to dominate everyone around them, including animals. And new feelings were born in these animals, because everything is an evolution. Then the animals started to defend themselves. In what way? Attacking beings. So then another harmony just broke, between beings and animals. So that's how it is. This is how everything has been happening over time, over eons. All beings evolve. All souls evolve, and as souls evolve, they become wiser, because they have access to greater knowledge. So tomorrow, I will explain how those, who lost themselves, let's say in feelings, managed to gain so much strength. I only ask you for one thing, what I'm passing on to you here is just a way of demonstrating some aspects to you, so that many limiting beliefs can be eliminated. I don't want anyone here to judge what happened or didn't happen. Who are you to judge divine wisdom? Who are you to think this is all right or wrong? So, there is no place here for any of you to think that God's attitude was correct or not. Do you know what the biggest purpose of all this is? You only know a millionth of what really is the purpose of everything. So don't judge. You don't want to think you're too smart to judge everything that happened and think that it's all wrong. Who are you for this? The only thing you have to worry about is, at all times, trying to return to your hearts, those original feelings of your consciousness, which is love. Yes, that's what you have to look for. Because you have already realized that with all this history, all the bad feelings that have evolved over time, what have they only brought? Suffering and pain. So, that is the lesson that you have to learn, that you have to eliminate these feelings, so that perhaps in the world, in the future, you can have totally banished these feelings from the universe. Imagine. Would it be possible? Think about it. I am Archangel Michael. I'm here, telling each one of you, the story of the universe, so that you can begin to analyze exactly everything that is there, inside your hearts.